Sherry. We're live?
We're live.
Take charge.
All right, how long you guys wanna be here?
2 hours or less.
Whoa.
For some reason, I was thinking this was supposed to start at 3. That's why I'm a little bit late, but
Yeah, you're right on time.
yeah.
You know, I know we got stuff to go over here, but also, you know, at some point, or maybe we could take some time out today. I think there are just a few things we need to maybe go over too, you know, for strategic planning, maybe some smaller things. These are like big items, but you know, there's some other like smaller items too that I think we just need to, you know, address at some point. And I don't know how you want to, if you want to go through this and first or.
I think if we go through this at a section by section, because you kind of got it broken into goals.
Right.
And when we come to
Yeah.
that section where you think, you know, just speak up then.
Okay.
And,
If it fits in.
Yeah.
All right.
yeah,
Sounds good.
I would like, and straighten me out a little bit, but I always think about strategic planning as a big picture where you're gonna go down the road, not necessarily resolving what road you gravel out in the country. And I would like to see us think about some of the issues that the county would probably be facing in the longer run.
So, a strategic plan probably isn't going to be as big picture as what you're talking about, but I think you could extend the timeline. You know, right now, last time we talked, we were talking about keeping it to a 3-year timeline. You could go to a 5-year timeline, and, you know, look to more like longer range goals, and objectives that way. But, and a strategic plan may, you know, that'll be up to you as a commission if you wanna get down to the really fine details of, yeah, you know, paving this road, or what, graveling so many roads, whatever. That may be a little bit too detailed for this kind of thing, but, if, we can come up with some ideas, you know, like, what can departments do, to help achieve the goals that you wanna achieve? If that makes sense?
Yeah, I think like you're talking with graveling roads and stuff like that, that's on our 5-year plan.
Yep.
So I don't even think we need to core down into that one, but there may be a couple other departments here that we have that we wanna do a 3-year plan, so that, and some of the lower level stuff, so that'll take us to the 3-year, and then, you know, and then move on further from there once we reach the 3-year goal.
Right, yep. That'd be a way to kinda expand the breadth of this plan, would be to maybe go a little longer in scope. And I did kinda pull the camera back a little bit, you know, on these things. You know, last time we talked, we talked about changing some of the ideas, or, last year we had, what do we call the goal, like focus areas, or,
Something like that.
topics, basically. So, this time around, I looked at made kind of a general, umbrella issue, that covers a few topics there. Actually, in doing that, I whittled, oh,
Where's Wanda when we need her?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. She should be on the planning and zoning board too.
all right. Yeah, let's see. Did I whittle it down, I think? Or did I keep it? Okay, I did. I kept it, at 6 topics, or, the core strategies. I was very, very tempted when I was kind of putting this draft together. I was very, very tempted to to put, public safety and ambulance service together under one. Just a thought there. I guess, let me back up too, and maybe you've seen kind of what I was up to here. We lost a month, of meeting, didn't work out in the schedule. So what I did, I went ahead and I put in some, objectives and tasks under each of these, core strategies. And just kind of put them in there.
What page you on?
So I'm, for the sake of this exercise here, I'm just on page 4
Okay,
with, county operations.
okay.
Okay, so there's a lot of stuff there, right? And I basically put a lot of that stuff in there as, I don't know, filler material, or at least something to kind of get the discussion going. And a couple of the goals, I was like, I wasn't quite, I didn't quite have I guess the BS resources were not quite as, fruitful there. But like, for example, like, I would like to do a little better job on like the ambulance service, issue, like on page 7, and the IT, information technology issue on page 12. I basically kind of took what Ryan and Dan had from the last time, and put them in there for now. So I'm probably looking to expand those pages. I also kind of put this under that framework, like Ryan talked about in April, with he kind of equated goals, objectives, and tasks to stories, projects, and tasks. So that's kind of the level of detail that we're kind of going into here. Is we've got the goal is kind of the general goal at the top, or the strategic goal at the top, I should say. And then that's followed by a brief statement. And then we get down into the more specific objectives, and then under each of those objectives, then we're talking about things that you could do as a county to move that goal forward, or move towards the goal, I should say. We don't want to move the goal.
One of the things that's probably been on my mind for the last 2 months is the county's financial structure. How we gonna structure this economy going forward in today's world to operate effectively without just raising taxes. And I think I'll give an example. An example is probably the wind farm situation. I think we need to be aware that this county needs to raise money, and we need to have a plan to do it. And I think the income part of most of our discussions is totally eliminated. We don't address that. The public doesn't know. They don't like the looks of them. That's boils down to, that's almost the only legitimate excuse that they've got. But financially, it could assist our budget. And we have to look for not only that, but other areas that we can raise money in to keep our county running.
Yeah, I think,
And that's one thing that I've always said, even when I was campaigning, is that, property taxes is not gonna keep up with inflation. eventually, our property tax money is gonna run out, and we're gonna have to have another source of revenue, more
Well,
sources of revenue.
Property tax is fixed. I mean, we
Right,
don't
right,
have
I mean-
power, we don't have powers to really increase property taxes. We're limited to how much we can increase our budget. That
And
flows
growth,
back
CPI
and
and
grow.
growth.
CPI
Right.
growth,
And
yes.
growth.
And the only way that our tax base of property can grow is if we have more development. Wind farms or more housing, more
Yeah.
businesses moving into
Yes.
town. I think the hard challenge here is that at the same time, we can't have development without the infrastructure, which that costs us money, the roads. And so the question is how do we spur that development? And it's that balance of where are we investing and where are we getting our tax base growing?
And I think the one thing with the wind tower is they're gonna build their own infrastructure. Infrastructure for that's not gonna cost us a dime.
Or
We had that,
very little.
Well, yeah,
Probably
exactly,
very
very,
little.
very little.
Yes.
And the infrastructure will probably end up better when they're done than when they started.
yeah,
That's what how we look at it and how they've kind of portrayed that will happen.
and the counties are really at a disadvantage because, TID's discretionary formulas really hurt us. I mean, I don't know if you guys read that article in the newspaper about the new housing
3 of them, yes.
that all have TIFs, and why do they have TIFs? To build the infrastructure.
Yeah.
So effectively,
Those-
if you wanna think about it, by us not receiving a penny of tax dollars for 20 years on all those homes, the county is paying the infrastructure
For the
for the
infrastructure,
city.
exactly.
No,
And-
a little correction there, cause
But-
so those TIFs, so they're taking out loans, they gotta be paid back for infrastructure. The tax increment, so the increased taxes off that are being directed into paying those off, and they do
To the
sunset.
developer,
Once they're
yeah.
paid off, then those property taxes become available, so that's exactly one of those situations where you're trying to balance, okay, you gotta make sure that investment, that TIF, the increment taxes, the taxes you're giving up, because if that didn't go through, you would have no development and you get nothing anyway.
No,
So, or-
not necessarily true.
You're still
but I
getting
get-
you're
I
still
get
getting
what
your
you're saying.
base property tax, so
No,
that's the
well,
question
no,
is,
you're
you have to be
getting
very
the-
careful, but I agree with you, you
Yeah.
have to be careful that you are going to see a
We're-
true improvement
yeah.
in your property tax
We're
base.
getting the property tax as it was bare ground for
Yep.
the next 20 years.
Yeah.
But that's a point that you make, I understand that, but guess what we also have? We have the sheriff, we have the ambulance, we have the assessors, we have Patty. We might not if it's in the municipality, but that's a good point. But Patty has to collect the taxes, Patty has to distribute the taxes. So we
Michelle's gotta
actu-
go out and assess
Well,
the
yeah,
property.
yeah, and so I just make everybody aware of that, that there are other types of things that maybe don't take TIFs that we could look at, or
Well,
discretionary
and this is,
formulas.
and you're right, we don't see any return on that investment, or we don't receive any benefit for 20 years.
Yeah.
And that's
But-
one of
but
those things, is like,
significant more cost,
it's
too.
really hard, though, it's like, okay, if we don't do any of those things, we're just kinda stuttered, stopped, and we're gonna be stunting our development, and we're gonna be stagnated.
Indirectly,
You know,
we
so
do.
I don't know, like, we have to be, I agree with you, you gotta be careful, you gotta make sure that you're gonna see a benefit, but at the same time, you can't be afraid of them too.
The one thing that I don't like about what, these 3 especially, is we have no say-so in it. None
That's-
whatsoever.
Come July
That is
1st,
true.
we do.
Be-
That's, why do you think there was 3 done
Right,
this month?
exactly,
Because
exactly.
in July 1st, we could do an administrative fee,
administrative fees.
like a lot of people do and we're talking maybe 1% over the life of the project. Not very much, but it beats better than 0. So,
I think what I hear Dan talking about is the indirect things that we get out of the TIFs. Some of them work, some of them don't. I don't know that the farmers got any real indirect advantage out of Napa Junction. But, hopefully, some of the tips that are going on here, there'll be more people who have places to live, they'll be employed. They'll spend money in town.
Well,
And
we,
we kinda lucked out with Westbrook Estates on the first phase, cause, you know, they reached, you know, full build out in only like 7-8 years. And they could retire that tip.
yeah,
Now they're going in for another one, and I think that at least one thing I heard is, that's a little bit promising, is that now the developer's gonna be on the hook for
Yeah.
those loans.
So the point that I guess that I wanted to bring up was, not for or against TIFs or whatever, but we need to develop a strategy for bringing money in.
Oncoming
Yeah.
revenue.
I
Oncoming
have
revenue.
that, something that I'd like to see in the near future while we're on this is July 1st, we're now allowed to do an administrative fee.
And I was just.
And so
I
I've
agree with you. I
actually
think we need to look at that.
Talked to Gary about doing
Yeah,
maybe
yes,
a 1% fee as a resolution, just so everybody knows, and that could be over the life of the project. So somebody comes in and $1 million TIF, 10%, and then that would cover us for the 20 years it's not generating for I mean, because you think 20 years, there's a lot of administration that the cities don't have to do, but the county does. We're not gonna get rich off of it, but I think cover our bases, and I think that's reasonable. I mean, is that
Well,
something?
it
you
is
guys-
true, it's like, okay, you know,
Yeah.
and that's the indirect cost you're getting at. You
Yeah.
build in the new housing development, well,
Yeah.
we're providing the ambulance services.
Sheriff.
We're the ones who have to go
Yeah.
out and assess all the
Yeah.
properties and everything.
Send all the tax
And
bills.
send all the
out,
tax
yep.
bills and do all the extra work, you know, to what used to be a bare piece of land. And we have to do
Yeah.
that for 10 years without seeing a return otherwise. So-
Exactly.
Yeah. And the TIFs, they're never, very rarely paid off early.
You know, and we could actually use these three, and it'd be extra work for Gary, but we could figure out if 1% is enough. I mean, 1% might not be enough over 20
Yeah.
years.
Dan,
What-
You know, of a
I think,
a
is that
$3
what
million
Rapid City,
TIF.
is that what
Dan,
Rapids?
is there, that law, is there a cap on that fee or what's?
No,
how
there,
is that
I don't
written?
think I don't think
It
there's
says
a,
it has to be a reasonable
Yeah.
amount.
Oh.
And Pennington actually did have a couple developers that gave them $10,000 flat fees to administer the last two TIFs they had. Just, cause they know it's a lot of work. to take.
part of the reason I would think we do a resolution is we just treat
Yeah.
everybody the same, because we all know what we're gonna
Yeah.
have is somebody's gonna want us to do it for free, and then we'll charge somebody else something else. Across the board, 1% on the valuation.
I
of
agree,
it.
if, whatever it
then-
is, it has to be set in that
Yes, I agree
resolution
too.
as a.
Yeah.
as
And that's
a
why I
number.
say if there's some way we could calculate a formula or something,
Yeah.
maybe 1%'s not enough of
Yeah,
maybe 1% of a $300 million project is too much, you
Yeah.
know?
yeah,
Well, I've gone on from just
But-
specifics, but
yeah.
No, I know. I know.
Well, I'll work with Gary on getting something, and we can
Sure, that's fine.
tweak it, and it might not, you know, maybe we'll word it so 1% unless the commission decides different, but.
Well, I think that's what we do after we get our strategic plan
Yeah.
set up.
Yeah,
I'm guessing that those are the steps that we go to start putting.
yeah,
But I do believe that resolution should be written, because July 1 is when
Yeah.
it goes into effect.
yeah. And then that lets the city know too
Yeah,
that,
and
'cause
everybody
this would
knows
cover
that,
everything. But, and then I wanted to add something too, is there's different types of development that we have too. Cause, Ryan lists smaller development, no TIF or TID on that. And then that one out by you down on West 11th, there's no TIF or TID on that. They're smaller developments, but are they actually maybe a better approach for the county, because we're not waiting 20 years to get the return? That's something, why can a small developer accomplish that?
But we have to be careful there
Yeah.
too, because,
Yeah.
When you take all these small developments and you're not looking at a bigger picture, you can end up with problems down the road. Water pressure suddenly not being there.
Yeah.
Things
Yeah.
like roads that are inadequate for
Yeah.
the growth that's an area seeing, And so we have, if we're going to let these smaller things, we have to still keep that bigger picture in there of, even though these are small developments and they seem small, little, they don't have a huge impact by themselves. We do have to look at infrastructure almost across the board all the time on every one of these, because
Well, yeah,
we
and-
could
and that's
back
all
ourselves
done.
into a corner that's really bad.
But,
way
yeah,
worse.
but that's kinda, you know, where the BY water and electric, they're not gonna put in something like that, that's not served. I mean, that was a 2-year thing with
But
the
that's-
water, you know, the developer comes in and he's gotta work with them.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you know, and I get where you're saying, but at the same point, you know, that's the
But see, that's
developer's
exactly, it's
concern
like,
and not
you know,
ours,
when we
so.
talk about economic development, we have an infrastructure. Unfortunately, we don't run our own infrastructure, so our infrastructure is
Yeah.
BY Water and BY Electric.
Yeah.
We have to work with them on these.
Well, we
with these
don't, the
items.
developer does, yeah.
But I think we should work with them a little bit more. I don't know, somehow we should be at least looking at some way of, you know,
And I agree, just
coordinating
like,
a little bit better with, in terms of
Yeah.
planning, and so that, you know, they can kind of see where growth is happening too, and
Yeah.
have a better future for their infrastructure.
you know, just like I said, we should be involved with the city on the TIFs.
Mm-hmm.
We should be involved right there
Exactly.
too.
And I think BY Water's kind of been notorious for not wanting to work with anybody. I mean, is that, I mean, let's be honest, I mean.
In Pennington, it did get, they put 2 members on the board with the city on their TIFs now out there, and like you're talking, you know, Gromart just last month did a $800,000 building and a $400,000 office or whatever, 1.2 million. Between the two of them, they pulled permits for, and
Yeah.
those are good projects.
Where will they be located at?
The new site up there on east
Yeah.
side.
Okay.
So, you know, and it kind of almost seems a little unfair, and I get it state law, but we got the smaller local guys, they gotta pay full price, but when a big development comes in, then they get all the tax breaks. That's my concern, and how do we fix that, I don't know, but maybe we shouldn't discount small developments, I know there's obviously hiccups, but there's hiccups with the big ones too, and, if you think about it, it's almost, that 20 lots we're doing on Deer Boulevard is a much better return than the new ones that are coming where we won't have a hand on it for 20 years, so.
Well, and I agree with
Yeah,
you, like,
yeah.
when the project is good, it's gonna be these small developments are better for us.
Yeah,
It'd be a lot nicer project
And I
out
think-
there if
I
we
think,
had sewer coming into the city from there.
yeah.
I think when we talk about, so let's talk about like a goal or a larger goal of economic development. I think trying to build that mutually beneficial relationship with BY Water, BY Electric and stuff like that, so that we are more on the same page and less
I think,
on the opposite ends.
BY Electric, I've at least reached out to, and I think they're very, at least in my opinion, very accommodating. I know when I've built houses, you call the phone and they're there usually the same day or next day. They're easy to work with. That's not true of all utilities. I know that, like we said, that one was on hold for 2 years, and I believe state law, you know, the water companies are supposed to supply us with a map, and they never do. So, I mean, that would be helpful too, but, if you wanna, do you know anybody on BY Water by chance, or no?
Only the people I talk to.
Okay, maybe
Yeah.
you might know them a little better, but that would be a great thing to do, is see what.
Do you work with
what
BY
they
Water
need.
at all?
You know, when Mr. Williams ran the show, he was actually probably one of the most frequent visitors of our office. And he mainly would go in and talk to Brian, you know, and Brian did a lot of work for him. At District 3 did a lot of work for him. Since Terry took over, not a whole lot, but still we do some work with him.
It's totally different. I was on the board out there when Mike was manager.
Yeah, way different world.
Yeah, it's gotta be in my pocket, the money, before I even think about going a little bit on the edge.
Yep. That's,
But these are still, these are things that we should have in a plan, but I think somehow one of our strategic goals should be to work at, developing sources of
Revenue stream.
income.
Got it, yep, I think that's a good idea.
for sources of revenue.
Yeah.
So, and that's a great thing, and what are our options? It's fees, property tax.
Well,
That, I mean, that's our two, right, there's really no,
That's right now.
we
That's
grabbed
what we
on
got.
the, not necessarily us, but the county crapped on the farmers for hog production. They're doing the same thing on the wind towers. Our pristine, our beautiful little place, we can't see it change.
yeah. Well, if we wanna look though at how things are assessed, there's a couple different areas. You have owner occupied, you have ag, and then really everything else, okay? And according, when Michelle came in, I wanna say our ag assessment has gone down the last 4 years in a row, which is probably okay because of the economy. Residential and commercial property or everything else has gone up significantly.
Correction on note,
What's that?
commercial hasn't, and that's exactly a problem.
Well, it's ag, owner occupied and everything. So if you own like an extra house, it's assessed it's assessed like commercial. So
Yeah.
those are the three categories.
So-
So I get what you're
Yeah,
saying,
but-
commercial, but that's not
So,
technically
yeah,
a class.
so, yeah, I think you're
Yeah.
touching on the problem is, equalization has a problem, and like they had that bill, thankfully it was defeated, which was to freeze all assessments on residential. And I think the problem is if, you're taking away the properties of equalization, you have to normalize the properties. And ag is now set under law to be assessed according to production value.
Production.
Yep.
Productivity of the,
And-
yeah.
And that, because of that, ag, we end up with this equalization process that doesn't normalize correctly anymore. And then, and within there, we have a lot of commercial properties. Well, they haven't been reassessed for a while, particularly in Yankton. They haven't been reassessed for a while because we haven't had enough sales, because they have to go look at market value, and if they don't have enough sales to back
Yeah.
up a market change, they can't reassess them. So we have that imbalance happening as well. And then the unfortunate thing is our residences are the ones shouldering the burden right now.
Yeah.
So,
Yep, and it's most pronounced out in, say, a county like Lawrence County and some of those that have very little agricultural land to begin with, and they have a lot of government land, so the whole burden is on really your residents, and, we're maybe not to that point yet, but it's definitely something to look at. But I know if you look at assessed residential properties, even in the ag areas, they generally pay, they pay significantly more taxes than the surrounding properties.
Okay, so strategic planning is one of my little things that I was assigned. Eric,
Yep.
you're the professional leading this. With what we've been talking about, you want to continue to discuss things like this, or should we be going in another direction?
Nope, and actually, so this whole idea of, seeking or developing, sustaining, or sustainable, revenue sources, I mean, that could fit in, and I got it written down here, I mean, that could fit into, as an objective under just about half of the goals we have here. And so that would be, I think it'd just be a matter of where you wanna put it, and so I think you guys are on the right track. And what I can do is, take that general statement, that objective statement and build some some tasks underneath of it to throw out there as suggestions?
Well, you know, and you like you said, it kind of, this falls under a lot of different categories, building revenue, and it's converse of cutting costs, because that's the other way, is if we don't have more revenue, we gotta cut costs. And that's the other way to keep our county afloat and healthy.
But then you gotta convince, the feds and the state that.
Yeah, the problem is we only
Yeah.
get, we only
And
get to
so-
cut costs on 13% of
So do
the,
you have this like, this is like,
Expenses.
this is like a theme now, it's like, this is one of those things that's under every category, build
Yeah.
revenue, cut costs.
Yep, and maybe maybe that's like a common,
Yeah.
you know, like for each of the goals that
Well, yeah,
maybe rather than have it be like say under county operations and include, you know, every list under every department of how you can raise them. I mean, we can spread that out as a common objective for all the goals here, in the plan.
one thing for fees, I know I spoke with Gary and a lot of, I think we're probably in the minority. Most counties charge, you know, building permits for renovations, and we do not. I know in the city, if you put a new roof on, it's not a huge fee, but it's something. Our county, we don't do anything like that. I don't know if there's interest in that or not.
There's-
I know Brown County does, and I'd probably say the majority of other counties.
This kind of goes into that mechanism, you know, we have a building permit, that then triggers a new assessment on the property, and you're right, it should, that we should have, you have a major renovation
Yeah,
that doesn't affect the exterior of your house right now, that doesn't get reassessed, that doesn't trigger anything.
Well, look, every time you remodel your kitchen and a bedroom, I mean, you're talking over $100,000, you know?
Mhm.
All that stuff adds up in a hurry.
And then that plays back into our equalization process, because then we have all these people in here like, well, my house isn't as nice as the neighbor who just renovated, and their assessment's down here. Well, that's because it
And
never got
then think about
reassessed.
a commercial building.
Mhm.
I can remodel a whole inside of an interior commercial building for free.
Yeah.
That makes a
Yeah.
huge difference.
Mm-hmm. And
this
so
is
this
gonna
is,
be good, we can
this is,
tell.
this is like, okay, it's a lot of work though, you know, you're gonna have a lot more building permits, you're gonna have a lot more inspections, a lot more headaches of, you actually go in and check these things out and.
So, but a lot of the things that we're talking about here are about producing income through taxation.
Mhm.
I'd like to address how can we produce income through growth? What can we do?
Well, this is
Yeah.
kind of growth, because
It's growth
we're
that's
trying
not
to
being
catch,
realized
we're
by.
kind of
yeah.
trying to capture the growth that's not being, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
What's
it's
the
not being
difference
realized right
between
now.
a building permit for a brand new building and a building permit for like rehabbing a
Oh,
building?
absolutely, I agree with you on that.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
and I get your point
But
too.
if we're gonna put 5% or 1% or what, on standard across the board, we may as well increase their taxes by 1% on their existing and forget all the work, involved with doing the other appraisals.
Well, anything really that we
I
as a
didn't say that
government,
very well.
anything we collect as a government, you know, whether it's whether it's a fee or a tax is kind of a tax anyway. That's just the nature of government. So that, I mean, whether it's a tax on a business or a tax on an individual, I mean, that's our mechanism. I'm not aware of really other ways that counties are set up to do, you know, to collect I mean, we're not really designed to generate revenue, unfortunately.
Well,
You know, like a city can do sales tax. We can't, you know, it'd be amazing if we could charge a 1% on or even a half cent on all the beer that gets sold out at the lake. But unfortunately, we can't do that
yet.
yet. Well, that'd be,
Has the idea of impact fees been discussed at all?
It has some in the past.
You got any recommendations for us? I mean,
Yeah.
like,
You know, that would be, it would almost be like a way to generate revenue because of growth. But, you know, hopefully it's something you could do, you could enact so that it doesn't deter growth, because the idea is, all right, let's take, you know, Westbrook Estates, and they're proposing a new addition. And basically the idea is, they would come to, the county, the city, and, you know, display what their goal is, or what their plan is, how many units, you know, what's the cost of infrastructure, and either they or the county, would evaluate that project and look at, like, you know, the number of kids that are gonna be, enrolled in the school district projected, or number of cars that are gonna be entering the roadway. I mean, you name it, you know, it's basically it's taking a look at that project as what is its impact on county services. And you can then, develop a fee structure to basically, kind of make them aware that, you know, what they're doing is, you know, it isn't like it's free for everybody. It's, you know, there's a cost to, you know,
Yeah.
what they're doing.
that'd basically be like an administration fee on the TIF, right?
Right.
Yeah. No, I think that'd be a good idea. You know, and the interesting thing is property tax collecting entities, you know, now the school board, they're held harmless on the TIF, and they get that made up on the state formula, but counties do not,
Yeah.
so.
And I probably didn't explain the whole idea of impact fees really well, but, yeah, the general idea is that it's outside of the taxation system. You know, that it's something you could look at, as a way to, you know, if it's, you know, let's say, you know, they're looking at a major industrial plant up by Napa Junction, you know, what's the impact of that? I mean, then you could look at, you know, analyzing, you know, impact on groundwater, surface water, air quality, all that kind of stuff, and you could, you know, look at a reasonable fee based on that. That's probably like maybe socialist compared to what we usually do now, you know, that's like way wacky out stuff, but,
I just wonder,
it's out there as a tool in the planning field.
does that have any basis in codified law to do that? I mean, if a person came in and said, you know, we wanna do this project and, you know, we wanted to charge you a fee,
Yeah, sure.
You know, that's a good question. I don't know that South Dakota's had any enabling legislation for impact fees.
And our legislation, you know,
I
tell
think
me.
that's the problem.
Yeah.
And tell me
Yeah.
if I'm wrong, I mean, basically, my opinion that I get from our state legislature as it currently exists is they just like to dump stuff on the counties and they tell them to figure it out. I mean, that's why, you know, finances in the county are so tough across the state. You know, even counties that are growing, like Pennington and Minnehaha and Lincoln, I mean, they still have financial concern. And Lincoln County's still struggling to build a jail and a courthouse, and they're the third largest in the state. So, you know, if
'Cause
the
we're strapped.
solution to all of this was growth, well then, why aren't those counties necessarily doing better? And I think a lot of it is the mechanisms that, what lack of mechanisms this state has given to the counties.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And that, so maybe that kind of, let's circle that
Yeah.
question back to,
Yeah.
can growth pay for, or at least be a
Yeah.
long-term sustainable revenue source for county expenses?
Yeah.
So one thing long-term also we could look at is, you know, with the juvenile detention, you know, we're looking at the possibility of adding on, what do you think, 2,000 square feet onto our jail, so that we could house our juveniles on the lower level and more jailees on the second floor. And so far, the estimate that we got so far is like $3 million, but I'll guarantee it's gonna cost 6 or 8 by the time that's done and ready to move somebody in. But if we, you know, in there, we could, you know, get a grant, or not a grant, but just renew, cause the jail will be paid for next year. So that would not necessarily be a revenue stream for us, but that would be a cost-cutting system for
Yeah.
us.
Well, it could
Rather
be a
than
cost
paying-
cutting and, you know, and if you really start to, you know, again, working with other counties or something like that, if we are starting,
Yeah.
if we become a center to house them and stuff
Yeah.
and actually look at it, I don't know, can it be a revenue generating, small, but also cost cutting?
It could be, but to start out, but there again, it would be a long-term
But
goal
you,
to
yeah,
generate
it's a
revenue with it.
you have to have a long-term vision with that.
Yes, yes.
You,
But
you
you're
would,
right, today we just found out, we did get the grant to start looking for families to take
Yes.
some of these kids short-term. So
Mhm.
it all saves, so it's nice to hear that.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
they can take the kids for up to 1 week,
Yeah.
you know.
and that's, some counties have looked at juvenile justice or, you know, juvenile housing as a way to support revenue. Not necessarily gonna be like moneymakers or anything, but
Yeah,
that would be, you know, if you did that, you know, maybe you gain the attention of, you know, Bonham County, Charles Mix, where they don't have to transport juveniles all the way to Sioux Falls or whatever.
yeah, and, you know, so, and, you know, if we can spread that $8 million building over a 20-year process for us, I mean, I know it'd be a tax, you know, the tax money would be a bond against it, but, so whether it's 20 years or 8 years, whatever it takes to pay that off, but that would be a cost reduction to us, I believe, in the long run. The first couple of years, maybe not, we're, you know, probably still costs us $500 a student to get it up and running, but after that, the cost would go way down,
Well,
because
at least that
Yeah.
money is staying local.
staying
then.
local, and the kids are staying local, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
So,
And to have outside money, you know, come in from other counties would be, you know, that way you're not putting any more cost in the
Yeah.
building, you're actually getting
yeah,
revenue.
I bet you, you know, and we don't think of it this way, but 20 years ago, the wisdom of the commissioners to overbuild the jail, build it bigger than capacity, and it has generated about $1 million a year reliably for about 20 years. And the point's gonna come where pretty soon it'll be all full of Yankton people, but it was overbuilt at the time, for, I don't know what it costs, but it costs a hell of a lot less than it would be now.
Yeah,
And, you know, that was a form of revenue generation that I think was smart to do at the time.
where's Steve Larson now? Anybody know? You know, remember Steve Larson? Used to work for the sheriff's office,
He must have retired or something, I'm not sure.
usually always had a cigar in his mouth.
Mm.
Nobody know him? Okay. He was, when I was on the contact center board, he was on the contact center board too, and actually he was working for the sheriff's office
Yeah,
when they were talking about building it. He did a great job promoting that project. You need to bring him back and
if we think about, you know, I know we get a lot of complaints, but if you think about it, we got, you know, pretty decent government center, good courthouse, a jail, good highway shop. There's a lot of counties that are not in that position, you know, maybe our roads, bridges need some work, but they're getting a lot better. But we're in pretty good shape. Can you imagine what's Turner County gonna do, build $100,000 or $100 million government center courthouse? I'm glad we're not in that position. I don't know how they're gonna do it.
Having sat through this wind tower thing and listening to the same
Yeah.
group of people sit there and bitch, it appears to me that a big part of our challenge is educating our community. They don't understand. 17% of the people voted this year?
yes, in the primary.
17%?
Yeah,
I mean, what the hell?
yeah.
But they'll come and sit there and bitch. And of course, it's the non-bitchers, the ones that aren't here, are the ones that we need to have come out. But we need to educate the public about what the situation is. I mean, if we just go in and build a 2,000 square foot deal and without
Oh, yeah, I know.
convincing
We
the public that this is a damn good reason to do this.
Yep.
We're wasting their time.
You know, speaking of the wind tower, last night, one of the gentlemen that came up and spoke against it said 99% of the people in Yankton County don't want it. The poll in the newspaper says 47% do, and 43% don't. Granted, that's just the P and D, but that's,
Well, I said,
The correction is 99% of the people don't want it in their backyard.
you know what?
I think it's closer to 100, right?
That's basically, he said 99% of the people in Yankton County.
Well, do you remember, Don, we had that,
But you're right.
cell
If you-
phone
if-
tower
I
out
wouldn't
by
want
the
it,
lake
you
that
know, I
nobody
wouldn't want it
wanted?
50
and
feet from your
It's
house.
not so bad now.
Quarter mile
Yeah.
wouldn't bother me
You
any.
know,
nobody thinks about it sitting out there.
yeah, yep.
So where are we going, Eric?
So, just, I wanna take a step back here real quick, just to kinda let you guys know what this generally looks like. So, the idea, and this is kinda how I envisioned it, is, you know, we got each of the strategic goals, you know, and we address them in detail. But then, I pulled in, Gary's spreadsheet, and what I want those objectives or action items to eventually do is to connect with the implementation schedule like Gary's had, you know, in his spreadsheet. So in the back, and I haven't populated these tables yet with the specific, you know, action items, but the idea will be, that when you're reading about your objectives and goals, like say in county operations, the reference in the back will be, there'll include a table on county operations that'll include a list of things to get those things done. And then, you know, like Gary's got it now, you know, like, time frame, when do we wanna get it done, who's gonna be the leader on it, and so forth. Does that make sense? So it's all in one document.
Why I'm thinking about it too, I know there's a big list of the fees we charge for different things. I know, you know, liquor renewals and alcohol renewals, those things have not gone up in a long time. Is that
Those are all
something-
set by the state,
State.
though.
all of
We're
them,
our
even the
maximums.
renewals?
Yeah, we are maximized on all those fees.
Okay.
for the
I
state.
talked to Deb about
You
that.
know, maybe that's something though where we have to reach out to our legislators
No,
and let them know. A great example is the wheel tax, all right? We increased it $5 a wheel maximum, 12 wheels. I mean, I driving in, I bet I saw one with 30 wheels on. And that's, I think, a really good one because it affects the people who are using it. It's not gonna affect the little old lady with a car, but the guy who's hauling, you know, 3 pups trailers full of rock, it might, but maybe he should pay a little more because he's using it harder, so. Gotta get those truckers to pay their fair share, right? I'm
I'm
joking.
paying my fair share.
I'm joking, but, maybe we could get a list or send Patty an email and just, I'm curious about the, fees that we can collect and have the ability to collect. And, you know, cause I know the marijuana one, we were able to set our fee
Yeah.
on what it was.
Well, and that's like, you know, if you had a new license, like a new liquor license,
Yeah.
you can, that's
Yeah.
up to us.
Well,
And we can set
that's
that
the
fee.
application fee, right?
That's the
And then-
application
yeah.
fee, but
Yeah.
the renewals are all,
But then again,
Set.
you know,
Yeah.
the problem when the fees are so low, and I know it's set by the state, then people can sit on them for years and not utilize them either because the fee is there. And that's maybe something where we gotta talk to our legislators about it. But,
well, and that's actually, if they can't, we do have the right to revoke them on the renewal if they're not using them.
Yeah.
In the liquor licenses, I think the
Yeah.
other licenses, they're not limited, so
Yeah.
it's like, there's a mute point there, but.
and maybe bring in visibility because I'm sure we're limited on what we can charge for a casino license too. I'm sure. But look at it. So I think we could charge $100. but then look at all the social problems that causes.
Causes us.
Okay, I mean, we all know somebody who's probably been addicted to video lottery, and the problems with police, problems with kids getting neglected. So we get $100, the state gets rich, and then we have all the consequences that deals with it. And that's just something people don't realize. Because again, the state's getting rich on the backs of the cities and the counties, and then we have the, I would bet more than one of those kids in detention has a parent that likely has one of those issues, so.
I really like this part of it also. So if you can set up, like you say, a time frame and fit revenue generation in there someplace.
Yeah, it'll be, so, it'll be, like, just for poops and giggles, if we look at, on page 4, under county operations, say the second objective, strengthen our culture of service. Each of those bulleted action items will carry back into those tables in the back. And that'll be then, things we put a timeline on those things. And this is just, again, these are just for discussion purposes, and if you have completely different ideas, we can definitely incorporate those ideas.
I think Ryan, he hit on it too, and I don't know if I'm, saying it quite right, but maybe we need to identify, non-essential services or non-mandated services that if it comes to the point where we have to cut them, those would be the ones that have to be cut first. I mean, just a great example I'd say was the nursing service, and I don't feel we had a choice but to cut it when the state did what they did, and that wasn't fair to us the way they did it, but
Right.
You hate increased
we didn't-
revenue,
and-
cut costs. That's the
And
only
basically,
way.
the only thing we did there is took our people back and
Yeah,
relocated.
yeah,
Because
exactly.
we didn't cut the service.
Yeah, the state did it, but
Yeah.
we had, yeah, yep, exactly.
But, another place where that could come into play would be the extension office.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Granted, we wanna still support 4-H, but we don't need that building out there for one
yeah,
person.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's-
I mean-
it's a good question, because, we were just talking about the IT infrastructure over there too as well. It's like, well, why get this refreshed or anything like that? 'Cause-
Exactly. I mean,
Well,
there's no reason that she can't perform her duties in one of the offices downstairs. But again, the deed on that building specifically states that that building is owned by the county as long as extension,
yeah.
is utilized in that building.
You pay $375 a month for Wi-Fi out there.
Some-
Holy cow.
That's some good
It is.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
That's
that
big
is
Wi-Fi.
excessive, and that's exactly, what we were talking about. It's like,
So I-
we're paying way too much for some of our IT services.
Basically, we had a meeting with the 4-H group and their attorney, because they hired an attorney, because we were gonna move the contact center into that building. So they hired an attorney to stop us from doing that. But I told them, hey, you know what, if that's the only reason that we own that building, you can have it back.
So this is kind of a good theme here. So wondering one thing I could think of as an idea, because that's, definitely everyone should support, trying to cut costs and eliminate waste, is maybe invest in a facilities master plan, or for lack of a better word, it might take spending a few $1,000s to bring in an architect or engineer and have them review all of your county-owned buildings and facilities, and look at the operations, look at the
Yeah.
the size or the age of the buildings, and they can probably come up with a series of recommendations, on just like what you're saying. Well,
think
we don't
that's-
need we
yeah.
don't need to keep the 4-H, we don't need the whatever.
I think that's a great idea, and I know like the highway shop, and I think we have fax lines here, and I can't imagine they're used very often. I mean, maybe the ambulance would do some with, medical records, cause you're not supposed to scan and send medical records, right? You probably know that.
There's some weird things around medical records and,
Yeah.
but fax, and I think that's, there's very few places where fax is.
No, yeah,
used.
exactly, but we're still, you know, we still have a fax line at the highway shop. I think we still have one here, and maybe it's
Yeah, there's
50,
one upstairs,
maybe
I know.
50, but we might be able to save $500 a month by reducing that to one or two in the county, and that's
Kinda like it's-
something we could use, you know.
It's kinda like if you, like, say, leave your toaster plugged in around the
Yeah.
house all the time,
Yeah.
well, you don't think about it, but that's
Yeah.
probably an energy vamp,
Yeah.
you know, it's costing you a little bit.
Is there anyone at like District 3 or something that could take maybe a objective view of the county system and, or that we could have? I know one time I asked Greg and they had, that was right, I think when COVID started and they couldn't do it, but, you know, just somebody who's maybe not super familiar and they could come in with fresh eyes and look at stuff, like fax machine's a great example
Yeah.
of a way, and you guys don't have to charge us $2,000 for it either, so we could save money on that too.
Well, I could,
Yeah. Okay.
you know, talk to Lori about that.
Okay.
And, or, you know, it always helps too, like when, you know, if you wanna contact her, you know, kinda push those buttons a little bit
Okay.
and see what that looks like.
Okay.
I would say.
I'll get her number from you and maybe call her and see if
Okay.
she'd do that.
That's, oh boy, to remember where she's at on the list. I mean, you know, she moved into Greg's office, but I think our menu is still,
Sure.
based on alphabetical order.
Yeah,
So
and
she
I think
might-
Ryan kinda alluded to it earlier, it's like, you try to make things efficient, and then after so long, you gotta do it again. It's you're
Oh,
never done.
You always have to come back and
Yeah,
look at your
exactly.
efficiency.
Yeah,
I could get you that number, Dan.
okay, thank you.
And, yeah, I mean, that'd be something that I'm sure, you know, well, myself, I'd be interested in doing something like that.
Okay.
Now, I'd probably, again, you know, probably have to throw reality in my own face and say, you know, I don't know how quick we would be able to do that or get to it.
Yeah, that's
But,
fine.
you know, and cost-wise, yeah, I mean, we probably would be a lot more reasonable than a
Okay.
big firm, you know, but that is a good idea.
Not only reasonable cost-wise, but better quality product.
Yeah,
Cause you're aware, you know what's going on.
Yeah, and, well, and one thing too is you probably would be comfortable with the idea that we're not necessarily, you know, digging into a report like that to drum up business for, like, say, managing a big project that we find out. You know, like, for example, and I'm not saying this has happened with the school district, but a good example though of how you can employ a professional to look at your situation is, you know, they hired an architect out of Minneapolis to work with the school district to evaluate all their buildings, you know, and develop a plan for what is it, Webster and Beetle, you know, schools are kind of on the short list.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that process did develop into, you know, what you see as that early childhood facility on the north end of town. I mean, that's not what has to happen with the county. I'm just saying that's
Sure,
that is
that's
that's
the
a
thought
product.
process.
Yep, yep. But it was you know an evaluation of saying, you know, do we keep this building? Is it how feasible is it to keep this building up? That kind of thing.
So, I go back to what I was gonna say a little while ago and then didn't. With as many counties, and I don't know the number, I don't know which ones they are, but I continually hear there's 12 to 15 counties that are very close to bankruptcy. It's coming.
Yep.
We, to be strategic, we need to address that kind of issue, as we do on kids, youth
Yep.
kids.
Yeah.
We just can't keep passing it on and
That's
Right.
well said, Don, and, you know, something that is also said, you know, like Clay County said it when we were at the county summer study, is they're foregoing so much, you know, the budgets are so constrained, they're foregoing things. They're not fixing this bridge this year, and they're not chip sealing this week. You can only pass the buck so many
Sure.
years.
Kick the
before
can down the road.
You know, don't put a roof on your house and it's leaking and you see how long it lasts. And, according to LTAP, when you defer maintenance like that, okay, we don't chip seal this road and needs it, then it costs, set for every dollar you do in deferred maintenance, it costs $7 to catch up. So that's an excellent point you bring up. As you're deferring these things, you're never gonna get ahead again. So
Yep.
that's a
Yeah.
great statement.
And the closest example I can come up with that would be similar to what you're saying is, you know, when we work with small towns on big water projects,
Yeah.
that requires, you know, huge annual debt service payments. And yet, you know, you're talking with a small town that has had a water rate of
Yep.
$15, flat rate for the last 40 years.
1918.
Right,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
and now, and, you know, the analysis shows, I mean, everybody's gonna have to pay, $150 a month, you know, just to pay for the improvements, you know, that the town's doing. That's a little sticker shock,
Yeah.
but that's exactly, you know, deferred maintenance or deferred revenue,
Yeah.
you know,
And
retrieval.
it's tough for like those small towns, but it's also tough for us. I mean, we will have to make difficult and unpopular choices for the good of the county, you know.
I wonder if that's something that state audit could do too, is look at our fees and tell us during the audit if there's fees that we could raise.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that'd be some, well, we do pay them $17,000 to
That's what I'm
audit us, so
thinking.
maybe
I mean,
that's
They should
something.
be able to tell us by after reviewing
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah, tell them, hey, you know, while you're here torturing us with your audit, why don't you, make it a little easier and help us?
Maybe we could send Patty an email and then do the state audit and see what we're allowed to do. That'd be really helpful next month when we do budgeting.
Well, auditors always have to find something wrong.
Yeah.
They just have to.
They-
So they're here, we're giving them an open invite.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll pick easier things and be less
Yeah.
abrasive. So, where are we at right now? What do you think we should be doing next step? And I would suggest that we need to increase the frequency of our get-togethers in order to get this done.
Yep, yeah, I agree, and I'm open to that, and it'll maybe just be a matter of what specific day, like in the next couple weeks. I know it's gonna be a little touch and go for me, but, there should be a day somewhere that would work. Because, yeah, I think what we'd wanna do is maybe, break up this plan into, you know, sections, or at least, you know, each objective or strategic goal, and go over each of them with a little more detail. I think, you know, the way we did it last time, where, you know, each of you had a specific one to work with, and I know, you know, some of you came over to my office and, you know, we sat down and did that. That works fine too. It'd be just a matter of what you prefer, you know, to get this thing put together. And the only thing the only reason I kind of put this, you know, this level of detail in it now is so that we can kind of play catch up from that month we lost, you know, from the scheduling conflicts there. But I think, I mean, what I came up with is maybe, you know, worth some discussion, you know?
Well,
Absolutely.
I have notes all over the electronic copy here already, and
Oh, good.
have IT almost rewritten.
So, and that was one thing I was gonna say, is so two of the goals, I think are fine to remain. And I think, when I was looking at the IT, you know, I think last time it was more IT specific to a certain, objective, you know, like this particular, program or this operation, where how can we use information technology for the greater, you know, the greater good of the county, or, you know, to make the county's operations run
Yep.
more efficient. And then like with the ambulance service, you know, we've already studied the ambulance service a little bit, so do we need to tweak that, I think.
And
And
we got some updates for
Yeah.
that now too, that
Well-
we kind of need.
Yeah, and I think we're at the point, we read the report and we know that, you know, the ambulance system they're designed to lose money. When you get reimbursed at best 30 cents on the dollar, I think we need to have, as a commission, a long conversation and ask ourselves, I mean, do we wanna stay in this business, or do we wanna look at other options? Costs are not gonna go down.
No.
Our dependent population is gonna keep going up, and, I wanna say last year, we collected around, 14 million in taxes, and we had more money. So 10% of our budget went to that department that's not required by law, you know, and that's gonna keep getting to be a greater and greater percentage each year. Do we look at other options?
Well, that's like the catch-22 that we have, because it's not like we can just shut down the ambulance service
Yeah,
overnight and then
no,
expect
Yeah.
a new one to come in.
no, but there are other options. I was actually out in Spearfish, for conference, and the, veteran-owned business was the Spearfish Spearfish Ambulance, and it was run by an ex-medic, and it's a 501c3, and they had a really great service. It's, you know, private business can always do things more efficiently than government can. Maybe that's something we need to at least explore. You know, there's no harm in looking at it.
Is it possible to sell our ambulance service?
The other side of that issue, of course, Dan, is
Sure.
service to the customer.
Sure,
And is the customer getting serviced,
yeah,
you know, from
Yeah.
a private guy? He may be making a dollar
Yeah.
decision, and it's maybe a life and death.
yeah,
the thing I'd be interested in seeing with a privately owned or run service like that is the ability to attract and retain, young EMTs.
yeah,
Now that, and what I've seen around our district is ambulance, you know, services or ambulance districts they have a heck of a time, you know, finding people that are willing to volunteer
Yeah.
for
I
an
think
ambulance service.
they were all paid, and the people that we met, cause he brought 2 crews, they were all, you know, younger, and, you know, we have a lot of nursing students and USD students, and yeah, I think it's you know, something we'd have to look at, but, you know, we don't know unless we look into that either, so.
I agree.
So, you know, I guess, you know, for me, reading the report is, you know, how long are we able to afford this? Because again, we are the only large county that's set up this way. Talked to Brown County and Davison County and all. I talked to John Claggett, you know him. He said he's been a commissioner 20 years ago, and he said their ambulance was gonna bankrupt the county, and they had to make the change. And like I said, it's a testament we've kept it as long as we have, but the day will come when we're already at 10%. Are we gonna be at 15% in a couple of years, and then 20%?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a hard decision to make, but we're gonna have to make it, and the longer it takes us, the harder it's gonna be, so.
That's a good county to actually, you know, learn from in a way,
Yeah.
like, you know, like learning like what not to do. I mean, it's not that they did anything wrong, it's just circumstances, you know?
Yeah.
Cause I remember, that was actually about 20 years ago, one of the commissioners up there, you know, had shown me their budget for, juvenile services. And it was bleeding them dry. I mean, so that was another thing that was
Yeah.
probably, a crisis in their, you know, in their budget. And we ended up spending the better part of 2 years helping them study it and what kind of solutions, you know, can we come up with?
What was the service?
Like juvenile.
Oh, juvenile,
Yeah,
okay.
juvenile justice. You know, not necessarily housing per se, but just, you know, adjudicating and, you know.
Court system.
Yep, housing them, holding them, you know, and yeah, oh, I mean, it makes you sad because like, you know, they're shouldered with all that responsibility, and that's maybe a good background for looking at expanding buildings here to
So what, we talked about a wide variety of things. What would you like us to do to help you go on to the next step in this process?
Would each of you want to take on one of the goals here and just kind of tear it apart? I think it shouldn't be that hard of a task, 'cause I think, you know, again, the basic the basic layout is there, and it really it's meant to be, you know, looked at, reviewed, or critiqued, you know, and maybe add your own ideas there. I've given up on keeping each goal to one page. You know, there's just some things that just have to spill over into another page. That would be one thing. One idea is if each of you want to take one of those, you know, one of those pages from 4 to, was it 10 or 15, 4 to 12. Yeah, it's basically county operations, infrastructure, ambulance service, public safety, community and economic development, and information technology. And maybe we can kind of say information technology is kind of done, maybe.
Kind of done, and like it also, a little bit, it bleeds into that county operations a bit too. You know, there's a lot of similarities, like a lot about IT right now is about the infrastructure of our county offices and stuff, so.
Well, that might be something to.
How about if we combine public safety and ambulance service,
Okay.
which cuts us down to 5 slots?
Yep.
And how about if each one of us picks 2 of those, and I'll do one, and Dan could come over and we can coordinate and kind of get 2 different sets of eyes on the one, or on both of them actually. Or Don and I can collaborate on 2 of them, and Dan and Wanda could collaborate on 2 of them, and Ryan and Don could collaborate on
Yeah.
another 2 or something like that. Just so we're not sitting there and, well, I got this idea for this plan or this project,
Yep.
and I come in and these guys think it's the worst idea in the world.
Right. But by pairing up, you will have had that discussion already.
Exactly.
That's a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Well, I guess my only concern is with the ambulance. I mean, we just got the study, we're gonna have to probably make a decision on what we're gonna do. And, do we want an ambulance? Okay, if we do, how are we gonna pay for it? You know, and what are our options? Is to do nothing, you know, private care, ambulance district, you know, which would be a vote. And that is a little different as far as public safety, which, you know, I think would deal with our jail and our, sheriff's office and stuff like that.
Or we can leave them separate too. I mean,
Yeah,
I just,
that might be better, I guess, because, you know, the ambulance has kind of been high profile, and we are gonna need to make a decision, you know, as a board. And please provide me your feedback too with the ambulance on the path that we wanna go with that, or if we need more information.
Could be wrong, but in my previous training, a strategic plan with a large number of plans of different areas usually ends up doing nothing.
Yep. Yep. And
So it wouldn't hurt us to eliminate
yes.
down to where there's 5 of them and each
Yep.
one of us take one.
And within each strategic goal, I'm all for whittling, you know, because there's a lot of stuff in each of those. And so, yeah, what you don't wanna have a laundry list so long that you get burned out on it, or you lose momentum, you know? Cause most of this stuff is gonna get shared with the departments, and, you know, the departments are gonna be the ones that are gonna be the ones to help pull it, you know, pull this plan together, or, you know, you do the plan.
I'll take economic development.
Okay, all right.
You don't want IT?
Oh, God, no.
Okay.
Ryan could oversee me.
Yeah, there you go. Keep an eye on him, Ryan.
So, I'm fine with that approach is, you know, like teaming up and so forth, and if you wanna, you know, like say make appointments individually or as like in groups of two or whatever to come on over to the office, and we'll, you know, like a couple times we went over into the conference room and we just sat down and just hashed things out, and it worked. I think it worked pretty good.
I'll work on that with you if you don't mind, Don. You wanna, as a partner?
Economic development, sure.
Here, thank you.
That might actually help move it along quicker, like rather than waiting for another month to go by, you know,
Yeah.
and we may not have a final draft yet, you know. We may not have a final draft anyway in a month, but at least it's gonna be probably a heck of a lot closer to being done than you know, what you see now.
I'll do infrastructure and, try to work with Wanda on county operations.
I'll do ambulance and then help Don out with economic development.
So I know I got John at infrastructure and county operations, and then Dan,
I'll take charge of county ambulance and then assist Don in economic development.
and then, oh, yeah, Don is on economic development, and Dan, and then we know Ryan is on information tech.
Yeah, IT and really, IT and county operations are kinda knitted a little bit, so I would do county operations.
Okay, then I'll take infrastructure and public safety.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay,
So, keep things moving, can we kinda target, we've got, what, 20 days left in this month, or 18 days or something? Can we target trying to sit down with you in that
yep,
3-week period,
yeah,
talking through things, and be ready for our next monthly meeting then to,
yeah, cause then I think, after that, then I would hope to have a final product for you to look at, so that it'll be kinda right in line with the budgeting process. No, we may not necessarily have any items in here that would require a specific, you know, line item in your budget, but it's maybe good to have that anyway,
yeah.
just in case. Cause maybe you like the idea of hiring somebody to do a facility study, and, you know, if we say we put $2,000 in there, you'll wanna have that in your budget.
I kinda like having you do it.
So you thinking getting together once again before the end of this month? Is that what you're thinking?
Individually.
I think
Individually?
Yeah, maybe, I think you all have my email address. You know, you can shoot me an email, and we, you know, throw out some dates and stuff that you can come in. You know, hopefully you're not all coming in at the same time, otherwise you'll have to notify the public or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that way I
Can
can
we
kinda.
schedule it after 5 o'clock?
Yeah. Actually, I mean, that would be fine too.
Good.
The only thing I've got in the next few weeks is, my mom has some doctoring she's gotta do, and, that I'll have to be there for in Sioux Falls next week and a little bit of the following week. I've got a housing conference in Pierre the last week of June, but I'll be back, Wednesday the 27th, so.
So when are we gonna set up our next all-together meeting? July,
You wanna come back right after the 4th? We can call it our all-star break.
They're closed here apparently July 4th.
So the week of the 8th?
I'm gone the week of the 15th.
Yeah, I can't the 10th, 11th, 12th, or 13th.
How about the 8th?
8,
Monday the 8th.
Monday the 8th?
That should work.
Time?
Same time?
Same
Let's do
station?
3 o'clock instead of 2.
Okay.
You just wanna roll right into 5?
I like 3.
I'll send out a meeting notice for the 8th at 3 p.m.
Yeah, and then in the meantime, you know, just shoot me some emails with, some possible times and stuff that you wanna get together, and I'll see if I can make it work, and
Okay. Sounds good.
then the last thing I just wanted to tell you is, so I threw this page of infographics in there, that my idea is I would like to maybe put that, or make that for Yankton, you know, put some Yankton County numbers in there. And, that also might, you know, help with some of the ideas. I think it's kinda neat to have just a little bit of
Graphics.
demographic, yeah, and graphic background to, kind of show some rationale, like when you're talking about, you
This
know,
is the Yankton count one?
this is actually just a sample I pulled from
Oh,
another
It
county.
said 39% of residents age 5 and older speak a language other than English.
Yeah,
I was
It
shocked.
could be very true, though.
Well, the way.
Close
things
to
are-
it, getting
way
close
things
to
are going. You know,
yeah, I believe this came from a county that's a little south and a little west of here.
oh,
But yeah, when you're talking about, you know, the increase in the dependent populations, you know, that, you know, is gonna drive demand for healthcare and ambulance services, I mean, it'd be nice to show that, you know, graphically, so.
And, you know, that's something we need to consider too when development happens, when, you know, if we incentivize, owner occupied housing as opposed to, you know, multifamily housing, you know, you tend to get a population that uses more services, and most of those services come from the county in reality, whether it's juveniles or the jail service, you know, contact center, which isn't a part of this, but, you know, I think that's important to just, to understand how that, you know, works too, because not all economic growth and development is the same in that regard, so.
That's right.
So,
Very nicely said.
yeah.
That was very well put.
So I had a few things I wanna go over that.
Okay.
Okay, so we're on board for a resolution for, TIFs then with the county, and we'll put in at 1% admin fee right now, and then it'll actually have to come to us, and we'll do that then, but everybody's on board that the county should be asking for something to cover our costs.
Something, I'm not sure if 1% is the right number or
Yeah.
what is, but I think
I
that's the
don't know
research
either.
part. is
But,
what should be the number.
Okay, and then some other things I think we need to address at some point is, I'd really like the highway department to get one of those traffic counters of our own. I know Mike puts one up, and then a day later, the state wants it, and then
And
it
I've
goes
told him to
back up.
start looking at
So I think we just need to get one, and then create that policy on hard surfacing roads. And the reality is what was that with LTAP is over 500 or 600 vehicles a day. It's actually cheaper to have a paved road than a gravel, just because you're not running the grader.
Right.
And then maybe we develop some sort of policy when the traffic counts exceed a certain number, it's eligible to be considered, hard surfaced as opposed to not. We certainly wish we could hard surface every road in the King County, but we all know we can't. And maybe a policy would help us, and we could have the data to show it, you know, this meets the criteria where this doesn't.
What kind of traffic counter do they use right now? Is it just a?
The
is it
state,
just
I
the
believe,
O2s?
has one, but
It
he'll-
actually,
yeah.
it actually counts the traffic, and then it also gives you a list of the speed. It doesn't identify the speeds, but it'll
Yeah.
say 14 cars drove 75 miles an hour on this road.
Yeah.
Or,
And I saw some that had, they were a traffic counter and did like you said, but they also had like a little digital, said you know, maybe you're
Speed.
going too fast. And maybe we could use that when we're having
I was
speed problems
just
or
wondering
something
too,
like
because
that.
there's traffic counters now too that also do identification, so
Yeah.
how many
Oh, yeah,
cars,
yeah,
how many
yeah.
trucks, how many things,
Yeah.
you know.
You
what type of
probably,
traffic.
you probably know, if you have one that you'd recommend, just shoot it out to
I
us.
have
'cause
one
we-
in my office at home, but
Okay.
it's
Show
only a
and tell,
prototype.
show and tell,
The-
but I think that's something for a few $1,000s, we should just
So-
get to have in our arsenal.
So 434 and Kaiser Road is done. I take that back, it's not 100% done. The oil and the rock chips are put down. I drove it last night, and there's a little bit of a washboard on that for the whole road. But Mike said, well, get out, stop and get out, and the washboard part is the loose rock, it's not, so they recommended that, and I was gonna talk to Mike before I left, but I got here and he didn't answer the phone, but he said, level it off, cause we got a road leveler, I guess is what it's called. Level it off and roll it with a packer to get those rocks worked down in there, because evidently there was traffic on it a little sooner than it should have been. And it just kind of
Yeah.
washboarded that rock, but I could take and get out of my truck and take the washboard part and I could just sweep it off, and underneath is hard as a rock. So
That'd be great.
that, that's something that, granted, we wanna see how it holds up for a year. But if
Yeah.
it holds up for 5 years as is, that's
Yeah.
an avenue to
Yeah.
look at.
No,
And
that's a
then-
good idea.
While we're on the topic of roads, last night they started the work on Deer Boulevard
Yes.
down there. Boy, did that show how heavily used that road is. The traffic was backed up immensely all along the
Yeah, I
highway.
came down there when it was backed up, cause I
Yeah,
seen
I
that too.
lived there, so it was like, it was bad.
Yeah.
It just
And
shows you
yesterday
how
was
much
the
that,
first-
that
yesterday
little,
was the
that
first
little
layer.
road is, we've talked about it before, or they've talked about it being a only in-out passage for
Oh, yeah.
all those residents down there. I don't know, it does really highlight the fact that there is a potential problem there.
Well, I think by
Yeah.
next summer there'll be a traffic light there.
It's actually supposed to be done by
Is it
July.
this year now?
Yeah,
Well,
July,
I-
I think.
I thought
it
this
said-
fall,
Went
but-
out for bid. I think it was supposed to be done
Yeah.
End of July is what,
by.
I think what they said,
They were
but,
saying, the DOT told me the end of the year.
oh,
Yeah, but that's a great example, if we had that traffic counter like you're saying, and maybe the time will come where we need to redo that road and make it a, 2-lane with another lane in the
With a
middle
turning
or
lane?
something, I mean, the amount
I
of
think-
traffic is
yeah, I think
astounding.
the other thing too is like that's not had, it's really coming to a head that we need another in-out access road for those residents down there, something other than a single road.
Fire and Ice is gonna put a guy out there to,
Direct traffic at
direct
night?
traffic when they get done with their concerts at midnight. That's what they said.
Did you have anything else?
No,
Oh,
no.
okay.
So.
Then we got budgeting,
When you got for your band and that, your CUP for that,
Mhm.
didn't they put a time limit on your evening?
It is, yeah, it's
What's
time
that? What
limited,
is that?
like, I think it's like 10 PM,
Okay, cause that was brought up last night at the meeting for Fire and Ice.
yeah.
They were down to midnight.
uh,
So you should look that up, or you should look it up and make sure that they're the same.
we're gonna have to start planning our budgeting meetings, probably for next month?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
department heads were told to get theirs by the end of the month, and then she was gonna start setting up meetings.
Okay. Another thing I had is I know I was on the phone the last meeting and it's really tough to hear. I know you're working on, is there any progress on being
yeah,
able to Zoom
so-
or Teams or something like
Yeah,
that?
okay,
Okay,
that's in the works yet. Teams,
Sure.
I wanna set up so we are running our meetings on Teams, that's, I think, the ideal solution, because then you can come in, no more calling in, it calls into the app and all your vocals are there. Already have an wireless HDMI, so that we can share things, and so now I wanna have a discussion with the 5-Star to see if they can do this or not, and if not, then we'll do it our own, so.
good. The basement, I went and did a tour of the basement. We have a lot of space that's not being used very well. There was a water problem, probably before all our time. A lot of stuff got ripped out. State's Attorney's Office was down there and they've since moved. I think it would be, wise if some of us would go and just look at it, but, this year is a great example. There'll literally be 3 months throughout the year where this is not available because of primary election and then, elections in November. I don't think it'd be the worst idea to have a maybe smaller room where we could still meet down in the basement, because right now it's just, I don't know if I'd say it's garbage, but it's not being utilized to its fullest extent that it really should be, and should be put back together, in my
Yeah, I
opinion.
agree.
Have you
It would've
guys been down there?
It would have been
I-
nice if
I-
we could have got the contact center out of there and
Yeah.
then went in and focused on
Yeah.
remodeling or doing whatever needed to be done
Yeah.
down there to make it usable again.
And
I
maybe
hadn't heard
that's,
they aren't gonna go, they won't go out.
4-H won't let us use that building for that.
and if not, no, there's just a bunch of small offices.
Yeah.
Maybe we could go in and just redo it, so.
The 4-H board. I don't know I know Bruce Schwartz and his wife are on that board, and I don't know who else is on it, but.
Those are the kind of things that we gotta be talking about.
Right, exactly.
About economics.
Yeah. Alrighty.
And one other thing, I did talk to Paul, he's got a software salamander or something like that, where all of their vehicles, all of their equipment is inventoried into that software system. And I talked to him about putting like all the highway equipment, all of this, the small vehicles and everything in there. It doesn't, he said it doesn't track like mileage on vehicles, but if you wanna change your oil on a vehicle every 3 months, you can put that it'll follow is time dates.
So it's a inventory management type thing,
Yes.
not actual vehicle tracking.
No, it'll track vehicles too. They have all of their vehicles,
has.
emergency management, the ambulances are all in
Okay,
there.
it does actually have the vehicle tracking to it, okay,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So that isn't,
So, and they
Good
know,
feature
they
to
know
have.
exactly where that vehicle's at.
I've asked Mike about that before, do they track their vehicles, do they track their equipment?
So I just did this yesterday, cause there was
How does it notify you?
through an email.
Oh, okay.
Actually, I don't know if it notifies you where the vehicle's at,
That's
but
what-
Paul said he could look up and see where every one of their vehicles are at.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It might be some kind of notification to.
And it may, he might just might have not have it turned on. It should.
Manually.
So my thought is to have all of our equipment put in there. I don't necessarily know that we should inventory, like the paver and all of that stuff, but a lawnmower or whatever, I guess it wouldn't hurt to put it in. But anyway, my thought is set up kind of either a service system for it also, but also, you get a vehicle, you get a dump truck that's 8 years old, and you could probably replace that dump truck with a new one and gain 2 miles per gallon on fuel, or better utilization of the equipment. Because I know they're running pickups out there that are
So you're not
14
talking
years
just,
old.
you're not just talking the highway department, but all vehicles.
All
in the
vehicles,
county,
yes.
and I think that's a good idea.
So
We
you got a
should be-
trade cycle built in.
Yes, and so then we
And-
can have
and
we
know-
can finally have this actual vehicle or inventory management of all of our vehicles too.
Yes, and you got a trade cycle. Obviously, you don't want to trade every year. But, you want to get a system, and a dump truck is different than a car or,
Yeah.
whatever. But
Yeah, and I think a great example is the sheriff's office uses those. They gotta have really dependable vehicles.
Oh, yeah, and we could,
But-
and you could move them down.
And they
to-
could go to another department that it's not life and death, so I think that's a great idea.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That
so,
whole process is something that could maybe be integrated into like a facilities plan as well.
Yeah.
Be like an overall capital
Yeah.
facilities.
that'd be something I'll reach out to Paul and find out what more details on that
yeah,
program.
cause he
Yeah.
just sent an email for some training on it, and he knows
Because
the
I've had a
system.
few other discussions about similar things and, just feature wise, there's a lot of things when you start to say, oh, you're gonna track vehicles, you can, there's.
Yeah. I
see
was
what
kinda
kind of
disappointed
dashboards and
that it
things
didn't
has
track
and that kind of
mileage.
things. So,
But-
and that would be a very nice thing, is tracking mileage as well.
And, and maybe it does, but he doesn't need,
which maybe it does,
That
yeah.
could be, is there like a GPS receiver then that goes on the vehicles?
It has to have a,
Yeah,
Must
cause
be.
I mean, it
well,
wouldn't be hard to track.
you know,
mileage,
actually,
eh?
it might, and that might be why it doesn't have mileage, is it might only be a cell modem that it has.
Could be.
So, a cell modem you can triangulate fairly decently, but not to the accuracy of GPS.
Are you talking like mileages and how fast they're going or how
No,
far
no,
they
no, I'm just
travel?
talking
many
about
miles
for
the vehicles
maintenance,
travel.
for
Yeah,
maintenance.
okay, yeah. Good,
Do your departments, as part of their budget, do they develop like a repair and replacement
Yeah.
list?
Well, no, we don't, not a repair, but we do have a budget item line that repairs and things each year.
But this could make a very simplified matrix of where your vehicles are at and what vehicles may be the highest priority
Yeah.
to
At least then we
replace.
start saying, well, once it hits 150,000 or something, you look
Yeah.
at the cycle.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yep. Or if it's not being used for 3 years, what the hell do we need it around
Yeah.
for, you know?
Mhm, yeah,
Exactly.
yep.
So that's
Cutting expenses,
Got
the
expenses.
other way to
Mhm.
increase revenue.
Yep, yep. Okay, anything else?
Nope. Would like to put maybe just a spot on the agenda coming up, just a discussion on ambulance, and then that'd allow citizens to come in and give us kind of input on what they want to see on that. It'd be an opportunity at least. I know we've been talking about it for 5 years, but if it's on there, it just gives people a opportunity and it's transparent to our citizens, so.
I'm open to
yeah.
that, yes.
I think one thing I would like to know is, you know, if we do have to shut that ambulance service down, what is the options? What is that road
Yeah.
that you start going down? 'Cause
Yeah,
I know
I
it's not
don't
an
think-
overnight thing and it's,
I don't think for the first meeting on the agenda for the public, I don't think we should even mention shutting it.
No, I
No.
think it's
Maybe we should
just
get
like,
their
like,
thought
let people
process.
wanna see, you know,
I'm talking like, yeah,
Oh, yeah,
a
before we
10-year, hey, this is where it could be,
yeah.
but, you know, there's definitely no, that's not something to
Well,
make
Yeah,
a
we don't
decision
have a
on.
solution.
Yeah.
Would
So-
you wanna create a survey like they did for the library?
We could easily create a survey too, yeah.
Well, you know, I think if the survey's like, keep paying for it, and, you know, I mean, that, you
I
know,
think
that's
an
not
informa- I
gonna,
think letting them
that's
come
not
for,
gonna.
You know, public comment would be.
And then maybe we need to like look at other options, maybe we,
Well,
get some speakers to come in.
The
or
thing
something.
is, you know that the ambulance service will never make money, never pay for itself. It is, as you said, it's always gonna lose. And so the question is if we keep it, then how do we pay for it?
Property taxes, you know, and you know, again, we're the,
Production tax with the wind turbines.
we're the only large county in the whole state that's framed this way, and it's unique because you go, you know, to Pier and, you know, our county commission association, you would think you'd have some power behind it, but we're the only ones who are structured this way, and so most other counties don't have to, well, almost all other counties don't have to deal with it.
Do we spin it off as a nonprofit
I mean,
and county,
yeah.
and county then is supporting it still?
That's
but
kind of
then
what they
we
did with
try to-
Brandon,
then
Brandon,
It
yeah.
has to try to, you know,
Yeah.
fundraise on its own to help
Yeah.
cover costs.
A good analogy they said was, all these rural fire departments, 10, 20
Mhm.
years ago, they were all sponsorship and when they went to, fire districts, they've become a lot more professional. Are they funded adequately? They would probably say no, but, I know our fire districts do a great job. I mean, they can complete their mission and, something to look into, I guess. Look at all the options. I'm ready. Get out of here.
Too late for me to go back to work.
What did,
I got time for
with
a little discussion.
No, we're gonna
Brian.
discuss it next Tuesday night amongst us.
I might have mentioned.
They were supposed to, their board was supposed to get together and come up with, you know, cause we approached them, is there room for the contact center out there if we could keep Katie out there?
And if not,
And if not, I said, you'd have the